Unaware his wife quietly funded his mother's business, he slapped her in front of everyone at his mother's birthday party. What she did next left them all in tears. He didn't just raise his voice, he raised his hand at the one woman who had been holding his family together in secret. Just hours before the slap that would shock a full birthday hall into silence, Emily Carter stood in the cramped back office of her mother-in-law's tiny gift shop, sorting through receipts and overdue bills. She wasn't the owner. She wasn't even asked. But for months, she had been quietly paying the rent, covering supplier debts, and saving the business from closing, without telling her husband, Ryan, or anyone in the family. Linda, his mother, cried on Emily's shoulder at night, begging her not to tell Ryan how bad things really were. "He can't see me weak," she said. So Emily became the invisible support, the silent helper behind every open door and stocked shelf. By evening, that same woman stood under soft lights at Linda's birthday party, surrounded by guests, a cake everyone thought was late, and a room full of watching eyes. One lie from Linda, one spark of old shame in Ryan, and everything Emily had done in love turned into a weapon pointed at her. In front of everyone, family, friends, and even a certain uninvited friend of a cousin named Chloe, Ryan's open hand met Emily's cheek. Gasps, phones recording, a wife staring, not at her husband, but straight at the mother she had saved. He thought she would break. He thought she would stay quiet like always. He had no idea what she had kept on her phone, or what she was about to do with it. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Emily's truth be buried again. When you click that button, you stand with every quiet person who was betrayed after giving everything. Please subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The sound of papers slamming against the desk snapped through the small back office like a sharp crack. Emily Carter, 32 years old, flinched even though she was the one who dropped them. Her hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the impossible weight she had been carrying alone. Beside her, Linda Carter, 58, her mother-in-law, stood stiff with worry as she watched receipts spill across the table. Linda owned a tiny handmade gift shop, a business she had run for more than 20 years. But now the shelves were half empty, customers were fewer, and the bills were stacked taller than the display racks in the front room. And standing in the middle of it all was Emily, a woman the world would have called soft, gentle, maybe even fragile. But what they didn't know was this: Emily came from nothing, inherited nothing, and survived everything. Her childhood was a long trail of rented rooms, coupons, and a mother who worked 3 jobs. When Emily turned 19, her mother passed away, leaving her only 2 things: a small box of old letters and the fierce belief that kindness was the greatest strength a person could have. Emily carried that belief into adulthood like armor. She worked her way through school, became a financial assistant at a small firm, and learned something else too. Always keep records, contracts, receipts, screenshots. Not for revenge, just to protect herself after seeing landlords and bosses twist stories. That's why when she married Ryan Carter, Linda's only son, she promised herself she would never be the reason a family broke. Even when Ryan struggled with steady work, even when he drifted between jobs, even when his pride refused help he desperately needed. Ryan had insisted early in their marriage that they keep some things separate with money. He handled most household bills from his own account. Emily kept her savings and paycheck in another, something he actually liked, because it meant he didn't feel watched. That separate account was the reason she could help Linda without Ryan seeing the missing money. So 5 months ago, when Linda's business started collapsing, Emily stepped in. Not because she wanted praise, not because she wanted control, but because she knew exactly what it felt like to watch everything you built slip through your fingers. The memory hit her as she bent to gather the receipts. 5 months earlier, Linda stood in the same back office, tears streaming down her face. She collapsed into Emily's arms, shaking. "It's all gone," she whispered. "I can't pay rent next month. I'm drowning." Emily remembered holding her, stroking her hair like a daughter might comfort a mother. She remembered the desperate grip of Linda's fingers, fearful, embarrassed, ashamed. She remembered promising, "I'll help you. I have savings." You don't have to tell Ryan. Linda had nodded into her shoulder, voice breaking. Please, don't tell him. He can't see me weak. Later that night, after Linda finally calmed down, Emily had done what she always did when money and promises mixed. She opened the Notes app on her phone and recorded a short voice memo of Linda explaining the help she was accepting. Then a few days later, she printed a simple one-page agreement for Linda to sign, just to keep things clear between them. Linda had signed it with shaking hands, grateful then. Back then, the secret felt like protection, not a weapon. Emily gently placed a hand on Linda's arm. It's okay. We'll get through today. We'll finish sorting these. Then I'll pay the supplier invoice from my account like last time. Linda didn't look at her. She always did that when guilt tried to rise inside her. At last, she exhaled sharply. If Ryan ever knew I accepted help like this, he'd think I'm weak. Emily paused. Not because the words surprised her, they didn't, but because of the tone. Linda said it like it wasn't just fear, like it was shame, like Emily's help was a stain she needed to hide. Emily reached for a stack of packaging boxes. You're not weak. You're human. Everyone needs help sometimes. Linda swallowed hard, eyes glossy but stubborn. I can't have him look at me like some kind of failure. He judges everything. Emily knew that was true. Ryan, 34, her husband, loved his mother deeply, but he hated the idea of weakness, especially in his own family. He took pride seriously, sometimes too seriously. His childhood had been full of high expectations and public standards set by Linda's parents. He grew up believing, without ever saying it, that image is everything. It was the reason Linda never told him about the financial collapse. It was the reason Emily stayed quiet too. But now, looking at Linda's face, something felt off, strained, guarded. Almost like Linda was hiding more than just weakness. Emily watched her closely as they sorted the last receipts. Her voice dropped, a little softer, but edged with something she herself didn't fully understand. You won't ever throw me under the bus for this, right? She whispered. Linda froze. For half a second, she didn't breathe. Her hands paused midair. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Emily's mind flashed briefly to an old memory, being blamed at a teenage job for a mistake her manager made, losing her paycheck because someone else was protecting their own image. She had promised herself never to ignore that feeling again. Now she waited. Then Linda looked away. And that silence, that tiny, sharp, painful silence, it told Emily far more than words ever could. Something was wrong, something bigger than bills, bigger than secrets, bigger than help, something that would blow up soon. As Emily gathered the receipts into a neat pile, she felt the air shift around them, heavy, warning, cold, and somewhere in the front of the shop, Ryan's voice could be heard coming through the door. A voice filled with pressure, a voice on edge, a voice that would soon crack the world open. Emily didn't know it yet, but this was the last quiet moment she'd ever have in that shop. Ryan Carter burst into the small shop with the force of someone holding in too much pressure. The glass door slammed behind him so hard that one of the wind chimes fell and clattered to the floor. His chest rose and fell quickly. His jaw was locked tight. Ryan, 34, stood in the doorway like a man fighting a war no one else could see. Emily looked up. Linda stiffened. The air tensed. What's going on? Ryan snapped. I heard voices. Are you two arguing? His eyes darted around the room, sharp and restless. In his hand was a stack of bills, crumpled from his tight grip. His other hand held his phone, vibrating nonstop like it was impatient for him to look at it. Emily stepped forward gently. We're just sorting receipts. Everything is fine. We're almost done with the shop paperwork. But Ryan wasn't listening. His fingers pushed through his hair, and he paced the small aisle like a caged animal. He dropped the bills on the counter hard. Everything is piling up. The electric bill at home, the car payment, your student loan, and then Mom's supplier invoices on top of that? Why does it feel like everything keeps getting messed up around here? His voice cracked on that last sentence, and suddenly he didn't look angry anymore. He looked scared. That was the part people never saw. Under the raised voice, under the sharp tone, was a man whose whole identity was tied to one thing. His phone buzzed again, loud enough for all three to hear. Linda noticed his flinch. Emily noticed his hesitation. The screen lit up, angled just enough for Emily to see the first few letters of a name and an unsaved number. Chech, and a local number. Ryan quickly flipped the phone face down on the counter as if the screen itself would burn through the wood. Spam, he said tightly, too quickly, too forced. Emily felt something cold slip into her stomach, but she swallowed it. She wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. Still, the way he avoided her eyes, the way his shoulders tensed, the way he'd been guarding his phone for weeks now. Something wasn't right. Backstory reflection, step 4. Since childhood, his life had revolved around one unspoken rule. A man must provide. Linda never said it aloud, but her parents did. Ryan grew up hearing phrases like, "Real men don't ask for help. Real men keep the family standing. Real men don't embarrass their mothers." That pressure had molded him like wet clay, hardening into the man before them now, a man terrified of failure, a man who believed weakness was the worst sin. A man so afraid to look small that he'd rather snap at the people who cared for him than admit he was drowning. And Linda, she had fed that belief without realizing the damage. Her silence now, watching him crumble, felt like a guilty witness who didn't know how to undo what she created. Emily took a soft step toward him. "Ryan, you're under a lot of pressure. Just breathe. We're all trying." He cut her off. "I am trying, Emily. I'm doing everything. I'm juggling interviews, side jobs, and now with Mom's birthday tonight, I have to make sure everything is perfect. I can't afford any mistakes. Not one." He turned toward Linda, the only person whose approval he feared losing most. "I promise, Mom," he said, voice firming. "Don't worry. I'll make the party perfect. They'll all see we're fine." He said it with the seriousness of a vow. Linda forced a small smile, but something in her eyes flickered, because she had seen that partial name on his phone too. She knew exactly who Ch was. She had known for weeks, and she said nothing. Not to protect Ryan, not to help Emily, but because admitting her son was failing, as a husband, as a man, felt like admitting she had failed as a mother. Emily glanced between them, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Why was Linda so quiet? Why didn't she question the strange calls? Why was she acting like she didn't see? Ryan gathered the bills again, stuffing them into his bag. "I'm going to get coffee. I need a minute before we head to the hall," he muttered. He grabbed his phone. This time he didn't look at either of them as he left. The door closed. Silence returned. But it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, almost dangerous. Linda let out a shaky breath. Emily stared at the door where Ryan had stood, and in that silence something unspoken passed between them. Something sharp, something hidden, something that smelled like betrayal waiting for its moment. Neither of them knew it yet, but the birthday party Ryan wanted so perfect would be the place everything shattered. Linda grabbed Emily's wrist the moment the shop door closed behind Ryan, so suddenly, so tightly that Emily almost dropped the stack of receipts she was holding. "Don't say a word," Linda hissed. Her grip was cold, almost desperate. Her eyes darted toward the door, as if Ryan might burst through it again at any second. The intensity of the moment hit Emily like a wave. This was not the calm, grateful woman she had hugged months ago. This was someone terrified of being exposed. Emily swallowed. "Linda, what's going on?" Linda released her wrist but quickly pulled her toward the corner of the office, away from the front windows. The urgency in her movements was sharp. She waited until she was sure they were alone before whispering, "Please don't mention your help. Not to anyone. I don't want them thinking you saved me." Those words stung, not because the secrecy was new. Emily had agreed to keep her support quiet since the beginning, but because of the tone. It wasn't grateful. It wasn't humble. It sounded like fear and pride and something darker. Emily spoke gently. "I never planned to say anything. I just want you to be okay. The transfer for this month's rent is already scheduled." But Linda didn't relax. Instead, her voice softened into a painful practiced guilt. "You know how people talk. If they found out I needed help from my daughter-in-law," she shook her head, "they'd say I'm slipping. They'd treat me differently. I can't live with that." Emily understood reputation. She understood pride, but she didn't understand why Linda looked at her now like she was the threat. Still, Emily nodded. Your secret is safe, I promise. Just like before. For a moment, Linda's shoulders loosened. But then, like a clock striking a new hour, her anxiety shifted into a new direction. Emily, about the caterer, Linda began carefully. There was a mistake in the order. Emily blinked. What kind of mistake? Linda sighed dramatically, as if the whole world was resting on her. They sent the wrong appetizer count, and I changed the cake size yesterday morning, added an extra layer. I told them we needed the change today, but they want an extra fee because it's last minute. How much? Emily asked, already knowing where this was going. 300. Linda clasped her hands. I told them you'd settle it. They already have your number from when I forwarded them your email. They think you're the one handling everything now. Emily froze. Me? Linda, I didn't even place the original order. Oh, I know, Linda said quickly, adding a weak smile to soften the blow. But you always handle things so well, and Ryan has been under so much pressure. You saw how he was. I don't want him snapping again, especially before the party. And just like that, the guilt was placed squarely in Emily's hands. Logic backstory, step 5, emotional backbone. This was Linda's survival skill. Her entire life had taught her that reputation was oxygen. Her parents drilled into her, be perfect, be admired, be untouchable. She had married into expectations, raised Ryan with those same beliefs, and now lived in quiet fear that any crack, even a small one, would destroy her place in society. She didn't need kindness. She needed control. And the easiest person to control was the one who cared the most, Emily. Emily inhaled slowly. Okay, I'll pay it, but just so we're clear, the caterer and the cake order are in your name. I'm only covering the extra fee and talking to them because you asked. Linda's relief was immediate and sharp, the way someone looks when they escape danger at the last second. Thank you, sweetheart. You're always so reliable. The compliment didn't warm Emily. It felt like a weight being dropped on her shoulders again. Before she could answer, the front door opened. Linda's older sister, Sandra, 61, walked in. She was sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued, and known in the family for spreading news faster than anyone. Her role in the family was unofficial but powerful. She was the one who told everyone what to think. We're starting the birthday setup early, Sandra announced, brushing off her coat. Linda, where are the decorations? Linda rushed toward her sister, guiding her away from Emily. But as they reached the shelves, Sandra whispered, Why do you look so stressed? What happened? Linda glanced back at Emily, then leaned closer to Sandra's ear. Her voice dropped into a secretive, poisonous whisper. Emily caused a mix-up with the delivery timings. Don't tell Ryan, he'll explode. Emily felt her stomach twist in shock. Her heart hammered, her breath caught. Linda wasn't protecting her. She wasn't grateful. She was preparing a story where Emily was the problem, a story that could destroy her. Sandra nodded slowly, absorbing the lie like it was truth. Emily watched them from across the room, the walls closing in around her, and she sensed it. Linda's lie was only the first spark, and the fire was coming. The glass in Ryan's hand almost slipped when he saw her. 1 second, he was pretending to smile at a joke from one of his uncles. The next, his entire body locked up, his grip tightening so fast the ice inside the cup clinked loudly. His eyes froze on the entrance. Emily, standing near the table arranging napkins, followed his stare. That was when Chloe walked in. Her heels clicked softly against the floor. She was about 28, dressed in a fitted dress that hugged her figure just enough to draw attention without screaming for it. Her hair fell over one shoulder, glossy and styled like she knew she'd be looked at. She carried herself with an easy confidence, scanning the room like she wasn't just entering it, she was testing it. Emily watched her confused. She didn't recognize this woman, not from family dinners, not from old photos, not from any story Ryan ever told. But Ryan recognized her, immediately. His jaw tightened, his eyes widened, then narrowed. Fear flashed across his face for a split second before he forced it away. Chloe saw him and smiled. Not a polite smile, not a shy, new guest smile. It was the slow, familiar smile of someone who already knew what it felt like to be close to him. Emily's heart gave a small, uneasy jolt. Linda's sister, Sandra, moved toward Chloe first, always eager to greet new faces and collect new information. "Hello there, dear," Sandra said. "I don't think we've met." Chloe's voice came out smooth. "Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a friend of one of the cousins. We used to live near each other." One of the cousins. No name, no detail, just vague enough to slip by casual ears. Sandra, more interested in having another person to talk to than checking the details, smiled and waved her in. "Well, you're welcome. Come in. Come in." Emily noticed something else. The second Chloe stepped further into the room, her eyes didn't wander around in curiosity like most guests. They went straight to Ryan and lingered. Ryan looked away too late. Emily caught it. Her stomach tightened. She tried to shake it off. Maybe they'd met at a store or through the business. Maybe there was some harmless history, but something about the charged stillness between them refused to be ignored. As the party prep continued, guests carried plates and decorations around, music played softly, and the sound of laughter floated through the air. But under it all was a quiet, sharp tension. Chloe drifted near the dessert table, where Ryan was pretending to check the drink bowls. She moved slowly, using the crowd as cover, until she was close enough to speak without being obvious. Emily, from across the room, saw their bodies angled just a little too close. Chloe's lips barely moved. "You didn't tell me your wife would be this pretty," she murmured, her voice low and teasing. Ryan flinched. "Chloe, not here," he muttered, eyes darting around. "We talked about this. You're supposed to just be a guest, remember?" "Cousin's friend," she smirked. "Relax. No one's looking at us." But Emily was. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw everything. The way Chloe tilted her head, the way Ryan's shoulders went rigid, the guilty way he stepped back half a foot like he'd been burned. Her heart thudded in her chest. No proof, only signs. But the signs were getting harder to ignore. Linda passed by them and saw Chloe's hand brush Ryan's forearm lightly before she turned away, pretending to inspect the decorations. Something flashed in Linda's eyes. Recognition. She had seen Chloe before, near the shop, near Ryan's car. One afternoon when she'd just happened to be in the area. That day she'd watched from a distance as Chloe laughed at something Ryan said, standing too close, too comfortable. Linda had even walked over, smiled and said, "You're refreshing." Ryan needs friends who push him to be better, to Chloe, telling herself she was only being polite, not encouraging danger. She had seen the way they stood too close then, too. But like every other truth that threatened her picture, perfect life, she pushed it down. Reputation first, questions later, if ever. She walked past them now without saying a word. Emily, still arranging the napkins, watched Chloe glide through the room, inserting herself into small groups, laughing at small jokes, always circling back with her eyes to Ryan. And Ryan? Ryan couldn't fully look away from her. He tried. He forced smiles with relatives. He answered questions about work. He checked his watch. But every few minutes, his gaze drifted to Chloe. Like a bad habit, he couldn't stop. Emily's chest ached with a quiet, growing fear. She remembered the message notification earlier, the half-seen name, the way Ryan had panicked and called it spam. Now that name had a face. Chloe, not just a random guest, not just a stranger, something more, something dangerous. As music played again and final touches were added for Linda's big entrance, Emily watched Chloe pick up a glass, lean against a far wall, and study the room like she was waiting for a show to start. Her eyes met Ryan's across the hall. She gave him a small, knowing nod, and from the way Chloe's lips curled into a quiet, pleased smile, Emily sensed it. This woman wasn't just here to celebrate. She was here to watch something fall apart. The shouting started before Emily even realized the room had gone silent. "Where is the cake?" A guest called from the center of the hall. Heads turned, eyes shifted. Voices murmured. The birthday tables were almost fully set, decorations hung, food arranged. But the main centerpiece of the party, the cake, was nowhere to be seen. A knot twisted in Emily's stomach. She checked her phone. She had the confirmation message from the caterer. Linda had forwarded the original order email to her that morning, after Emily paid the extra fee. The delivery window wasn't even over yet, but before she could say a word, Linda stepped forward, lifting her voice louder than all the guests. "Emily insisted on handling the cake," she announced, shaking her head. "I told her not to, but she just wouldn't listen." The room froze. Emily blinked, confused, hurt, stunned. Technically, Emily had handled the last-minute payment and the follow-up calls, but Linda spoke like Emily had taken over everything on her own. Linda's voice didn't shake. It didn't hesitate. It didn't sound unsure. It sounded practiced, prepared. A lie she was ready to tell the second she needed someone to blame. Emily opened her mouth. "Linda, that's not—" But Linda cut her off, sighing loudly for the guests to hear. "I knew this would happen. This is why I said I should have handled things myself." The betrayal hit Emily like a slap she hadn't felt yet. Around the room, the whispers spread fast. "Oh no! She messed up the cake? And the party is today? That's terrible." And then she saw Ryan. His face changed instantly. A flash of embarrassment, a flush of anger, a sting of humiliation that twisted his expression into something dark. That one sentence from his mother, just one, was enough to ignite everything inside him. Backstory logic, step 4. Ryan was raised under harsh eyes. Linda's parents, strict and cold, believed that shame was a teaching tool. Whenever young Ryan made a mistake in public, they humiliated him to teach him pride. If he dropped a glass at dinner, he was yelled at until he cried. If he stumbled over a word in front of guests, he was sent to his room for embarrassing the family. If he disappointed anyone, he paid for it. He grew up terrified of looking weak in front of others. Even as a man, that fear pulsed in him like a burning wound. And now, in front of all these guests, his own mother was saying, "Your wife ruined everything." Ryan felt the walls closing in. "What? What do you mean she insisted?" he asked Linda, his voice tight. Linda placed a hand on her chest, acting wounded. "I begged her to let me do it. But you know how she gets, thinking she can handle everything. She told the caterer she'd deal with all the changes herself." Another lie, another knife. Emily shook her head, stepping forward. "Ryan, she's not telling the truth. The caterer—" But he didn't want to hear explanations. He didn't want logic. He wanted the shame to disappear. And instead of calming him, Linda pressed the knife deeper. "I'm sorry, son," she said softly, for the audience. "I just didn't want your special day ruined." Ryan's cheeks reddened. His jaw clenched. The humiliation twisted through him like a flame reaching gasoline. Guests watched him, waiting for his reaction, judging, whispering, expecting the perfect son to fix his wife's mistake. Emily's heart pounded. She saw it, the childhood wound in his eyes opening like a fresh cut. She felt sick. And then she noticed Chloe across the room. Chloe, the woman Ryan thought he could hide. Chloe standing near the dessert table, pretending to chat with Sandra. Chloe, smirking. It wasn't a smile of kindness, or humor, or discomfort. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. Someone who had seen this pattern in Ryan. Someone who had heard him complain about Emily. Someone who knew his weaknesses. Someone who wanted this explosion. Emily's breath hitched. She looked at Ryan, at the way his hands curled into fists, at the way his lips trembled, at the way he stared at her like she was the source of his deepest shame. The cake arrived at that exact moment, carried in by the delivery driver, perfectly intact, right on schedule. But no one cared. The damage was done. Linda played the victim in front of everyone. Ryan's pride had taken a public hit. Guests were watching. Whispers filled the air like smoke. Emily reached out gently. "Ryan, let me explain." His eyes snapped to hers with a look she had never seen before, a look that made her blood run cold. And in that moment, Emily sensed it. The storm she feared was no longer coming. It had already begun. The moment the cake box touched the table, the room exploded, not with cheers, but with tension sharp enough to cut the air. The delivery driver placed the large white box down gently, smiling as he adjusted his cap. "Sorry for the wait. Traffic was heavy." Emily exhaled in relief. Finally, the cake was here, perfect, untouched, right on time. just like the confirmation message on her phone had promised. She turned toward Ryan with soft hope in her eyes. See? They were just delayed. Nothing was wrong. The caterer followed the timing we agreed on. But Ryan was not looking at the cake. He wasn't looking at the driver. He wasn't looking at anything except the floor, chest rising and falling with short, angry breaths. The guests murmured. Their voices were quiet but cruel, like tiny knives cutting the air. Linda walked up behind Ryan, placing a hand on his shoulder, gentle on the outside, but her fingers curled with intention. And then she leaned in. Her voice was low, poisonous, precise. She wanted you to look foolish. Ryan froze. The lie sank into him instantly, like ink spreading through water. He lifted his head slowly, eyes locking on Emily. Something in him snapped, clean, sharp, and dangerous. Not because he hated her, but because humiliation had always been his deepest wound. And tonight, his mother had just sliced it open in front of an audience. Emily took a small step toward him. "Ryan, I didn't." But he was already moving. He stormed across the room, steps pounding the floor louder than the music. Guests froze mid-sentence, watching him barrel toward Emily like a man pushed over the edge. Emily barely had time to gasp when he grabbed her arm. His grip was forceful, fingers digging into her skin. "Why?" he demanded, voice trembling with fury. "Why embarrass me like this? Why make me look like a fool in front of everyone?" Emily shook her head, tears rising but not falling. "I didn't. I swear. I didn't. Your mom knows the—" Slap! The sound cracked through the entire hall like lightning. Gasps filled the room. A woman dropped her glass. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Emily's head jerked to the side. Her cheek burned instantly, hot and stinging. But she didn't stumble. She didn't cry. She only stood there, eyes wide, heart pounding so loudly she could feel it in her throat. Her gaze lifted slowly, past Ryan's shaking hand, past the shocked guests, and straight to Linda. Linda's eyes flickered. Shame, guilt, fear of being exposed. But she said nothing. Nothing to defend Emily. Nothing to stop Ryan. Nothing to correct the lie she had planted. She looked away. That betrayal hurt Emily more than the slap. This woman she had helped for months. This woman she carried through her worst nights. This woman she protected with her own money had just watched her get struck because of a lie she herself created. Emily touched her cheek lightly. Her skin throbbed under her fingertips. Her heart felt heavier than her breath. The room stayed silent, so still it felt like time had frozen. Ryan finally realized what he had done. His hands shook. His expression shifted from rage to shock. "Emily, I... He reached for her arm again, but she pulled back gently. Not harsh, not dramatic, just done. Emily inhaled slowly, eyes soft but steady. "Don't." The softness in her voice chilled the room more than any scream could have. Guests looked away, some out of guilt, some out of fear, some out of discomfort. No one moved to help her. No one confronted Ryan. Some even lowered their phones, unsure if they should keep recording, except one person. Chloe. Across the room, the mistress watched the scene with a satisfied smirk, a small, pleased curl at the corner of her lips, like a woman enjoying the moment she had been waiting for. Emily saw it, and something in her broke for the last time. She straightened her back, wiped the corner of her lip, lifted her chin with slow, terrifying calm. Then she whispered, barely loud enough for anyone to catch, "Okay, enough." The words were quiet, controlled, but heavy with meaning. Ryan blinked, confused. Linda stiffened, sensing something shift. Chloe's smirk faltered just slightly. Emily turned away from all of them, her steps steady and her face unreadable. This wasn't surrender. It was the beginning of something else, something stronger, something colder, something final. As she walked toward the hallway, the quiet in her voice carried a promise, one the room didn't understand yet. "If this is how you treat me, then you're not ready for what comes next." Emily didn't walk out of the party hall. She cut through it. Guests stepped aside, whispering behind their hands, eyes filled with shock and pity and fear. The stinging mark on her cheek burned, but not from pain, from clarity, from betrayal, from truth that had slapped her far harder than Ryan's hand. The hallway outside was dim and narrow, but she welcomed the quiet. The door clicked shut behind her, blocking the murmurs, the lies, the humiliation. And then the intensity spilled out of her all at once. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers, not from weakness, but from the adrenaline of someone who had finally reached her limit. She opened her photo gallery and files. Hundreds of screenshots, dozens of receipts, saved voice notes, backed up messages, scanned PDFs, everything she had kept. Not because she planned revenge, but because she was the kind of woman who always kept records, because she was organized, because she was careful, because she learned long ago that people forget kindness, but remember mistakes. Now all of that detail, all of that organization had become her shield. Her eyes flicked over the folders. Linda payments inside were screenshots of every bank transfer Emily sent in the last 5 months. Rent payments, supplier fees, emergency inventory charges, a digital trail showing that Linda would have lost everything without her. Business proof, pictures of receipts Emily covered, emails between Linda and the landlord, even photos of late-night bookkeeping Emily did at the shop. A scanned copy of the simple one-page funding agreement Linda had signed when she first took Emily's help. She pressed play on a voice note. Linda's voice cracked through the speaker, crying softly, "Emily, please, I can't tell Ryan. I can't let him think I failed, just this once. Please help me." Emily closed her eyes. The betrayal she felt at the party twisted deeper. Next folder, cake order. The vendor confirmation, the updated delivery schedule with the extra layer Linda requested. Linda's email choosing the vendor 2 weeks ago, in her own name. The extra fee invoice Emily had paid from her own account just yesterday. Emily swallowed hard. She knew the truth would hurt Ryan, but she also knew he had chosen the wrong enemy tonight. Her hands moved steadily, opening the next folder. Ryan plus Chloe. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't wanted to know the truth, hadn't wanted to believe her husband could betray her. But the late nights, the sudden phone habits, the flashes of a name she never heard. One afternoon when Ryan had left his phone on the kitchen counter, she had seen enough notifications from one number to trust her instincts. When the distance between them grew, she stopped gaslighting herself and quietly pulled a backup of his message history from their shared cloud account, not to trap him, but because she was tired of doubting her own instincts. Messages appeared, flirty, secretive, emotional. Then the one from earlier tonight. "Can't wait to see you, even with your wife around." Emily's jaw clenched. She inhaled deeply, slowing her heart, grounding herself. This wasn't the moment to cry. This was the moment to think. The hallway light flickered above her, humming softly. The noise reminded her of who she was before all this. Careful, patient, forgiving. But forgiveness had limits, and she had reached hers. She scrolled through the last folder. Emergency file. A single PDF at the top. Business funding agreement, Emily Carter. Signed by Linda, acknowledging the loans, acknowledging the help, acknowledging the truth. Linda had forgotten she signed it on a night when she was desperate, crying, and grateful, before pride took control. Beneath it was another document, saved weeks ago when Emily made the hardest phone call of her life, the draft divorce papers her lawyer had emailed for her review. Emily took a slow breath. Her reflection in the dark hallway glass looked nothing like a victim. She looked like someone ready. Her thumb hovered over her contact list, then pressed a name saved simply as Lawyer Daniel. The line rang once, twice. A male voice answered. Calm, professional. Someone the viewer had not met yet, but his tone suggested he knew exactly who Emily was and what she was capable of. "Emily," he asked, "did it happen?" Emily didn't hesitate. "It's time," she said, her voice quiet and steady. "Bring the envelope to the hall. Same address I gave you last week." A pause. "Yes, ma'am, I'm nearby. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He had insisted on being on standby tonight after she explained the situation and the party location. "In case you decide you're done," he'd said. Emily ended the call. Her fingers loosened around her phone. Her face, once hurt, shifted into something unreadable. And as she slid the phone back into her purse, she whispered to herself, "Let them finish their party. It's the last calm moment they'll ever have." 10 minutes later, a soft knock sounded at the side entrance of the hall. Emily opened it to find Daniel's assistant, smartly dressed, carrying a slim envelope and a small HDMI phone adapter in his hand. He spoke quietly. "Your lawyer said you might need to show some things. I already spoke with the hall sound guy. Your phone can plug straight into their system." "Thank you," Emily replied. She took the envelope and the adapter, held them for a moment, then exhaled. "Let's end this." He nodded once and stepped back, letting her re-enter alone. The double doors slammed open so hard that half the room jumped. Emily walked back in, not shaking, not crying, not wounded, calm, steady, composed in a way that made the entire space shift. The music faded as someone fumbled with the speaker. Conversations cut off. Every pair of eyes, curious, nervous, guilty, turned toward her. Chloe stiffened first. Her bright smile fell. Her cheeks lost color. Her fingers gripped her purse strap like she could hide behind it. Linda across the room turned pale. All the pride she wore earlier drained from her face. She clutched the edge of a chair as if her legs threatened to give out. Ryan inhaled sharply. He stood straighter, trying to regain control, acting bold again, as if what happened minutes ago was something he could justify if he spoke loudly enough. Emily ignored them all. She stepped into the center of the room with the slow confidence of someone who had already decided how this night would end. "I want to give a toast," she said, her voice clear and steady. The room froze. Chloe's jaw twitched. Linda grabbed a napkin with trembling fingers. Ryan narrowed his eyes. "Emily, this isn't a good—" She raised her hand gently, silencing him. "No, it's the perfect time." Her tone wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was controlled, like a woman who had already won. She walked to the dessert table, where the hall's staff had left the speaker and HDMI cable for the birthday slideshow. Calmly, she plugged her phone into the adapter Daniel's assistant had given her. The TV that had been prepared for Linda's photo montage blinked awake. She placed her phone on the table, tapped the screen, and turned the volume up. A familiar voice crackled through the speakers. Linda's voice, sobbing, begging. "Emily, please. I can't let Ryan think I failed. I need help. Just this once." Gasps shot across the room. Linda's knees buckled. She sank halfway into her chair, one hand covering her mouth, eyes wide and wet. Emily continued speaking softly. "This is from 5 months ago. When Linda's business was about to close, she swiped to the next file. A slideshow appeared on the TV screen behind her, the one set up for birthday photos earlier. Instead, it now showed bank transfers, payment confirmations, receipts, inventory orders Emily paid for, rent deposits Emily covered, website repair invoices, every single one tied to Emily's bank account. She spoke gently, but her voice carried through the stunned silence. "I paid for the shop rent for 3 months. I restocked the shelves. I fixed the website when it broke. I covered the supplier fees. I helped with everything." Quietly, because Linda was ashamed to tell Ryan. Whispers rippled across the room. "I had no idea." "She helped that much? Linda lied?" "Oh no." Emily didn't look at anyone except Linda. "And tonight," she said softly, "you blamed me for the cake, even though you ordered it." She held up her phone, showing the invoice with Linda's name and email on it, along with the note, extra layer added, "Client, Linda Carter." The screen glowed painfully bright in the guilty quiet. Someone in the back gasped. Someone else whispered, "She threw her under the bus." A woman near the front wiped a tear. Linda finally broke. Her face crumpled. Her shoulders collapsed, and she burst into loud, shaking sobs. I'm sorry," she choked. "I didn't mean to. I was scared. I didn't want people to know. I didn't want them to think I failed." Emily didn't move closer, didn't comfort her, didn't respond. She simply watched Linda unravel. For the first time all night, the truth stood louder than the lies. Ryan rubbed his forehead in disbelief. shame flooding his face, his earlier anger collapsing into confusion. "Mom, why?" he whispered. Linda hid her face, unable to answer. Across the room, Chloe shifted uncomfortably, her smirk long gone. She scanned the room quickly, calculating exits, realizing this wasn't a good moment to be standing out. But Emily wasn't done, not even close. She turned toward the crowd again, lifting her phone. "I showed you Linda's truth," she said gently. "Now," she swiped again. This time, message previews filled the TV screen. Chloe, Ryan Chloe, Ryan Chloe, Ryan flirty lines, late night confessions, secret plans. These weren't friendly chats. They weren't work messages. They were the kind of words two people shared when they knew they were crossing a line and didn't care. A photo popped up next. Ryan and Chloe together. Too close, too comfortable, too familiar. Taken outside a coffee shop Emily had never been to with him. Chloe's lips parted in horror. "Those are out of context," she blurted. "That doesn't mean—" Before she could finish, one of Linda's male cousins stepped forward, frowning. "Wait," he said slowly, pointing at Chloe. "Earlier tonight, you told me we were old friends, that we grew up around the same area, but I've never seen you before in my life." A new wave of shock rolled through the room. Chloe's friend of a cousin story shattered in 1 second. Now she stood not as a vague guest, but clearly as something else. Emily finally turned fully toward Ryan. Her calm expression hardened just slightly. "I showed you Linda's truth," she repeated softly. "Now," her fingers tightened on the slim folder she had slid under her arm when she walked back in, the envelope Daniel's assistant had brought. "Ryan, here's yours." A shiver passed through the room. Ryan blinked rapidly. "Emily, don't." But she had already started to open the folder, and as the papers slipped into view, the terror in his eyes told everyone. Whatever came next would leave no one in that room the same again. The first message on the TV hit the screen like a bomb. "Chloe, I miss you already. Chloe, tonight will be worth it. Trust me. Chloe, she doesn't appreciate you like I do." The room erupted into gasps. Guests clutched their mouths. Ryan's face drained of color. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, he really—" Emily didn't look away. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She simply tapped the side of her phone, and another file appeared. A photo. Ryan and Chloe together. Not explicit, but close enough, intimate enough, secretive enough that no one could pretend it was innocent. Chloe's hand on his chest, his head bent toward her, their smiles too private for cousins. Chloe burst forward instantly. "That's old. That doesn't mean anything." Her voice shook. She reached for the TV cord, but Emily stepped in front of her. "Don't touch it." The calmness in Emily's voice stopped Chloe mid-step. Even Ryan went still. Emily opened the folder in her hand, a thin, cream-colored file tied with a clip. Her fingers moved with quiet control. "There's more," she said. She lifted out printed screenshots, messages from 2 months ago, 3 months ago, last week. "Chloe, your wife is boring. Chloe, don't worry, I won't go near the shop again. Chloe, your mother likes me. She said I'm refreshing." The crowd gasped sharply. Linda's head snapped up. Her eyes widened because she recognized her own words in Chloe's text. Emily's voice stayed soft. "She told you that in the parking lot, didn't she? She said it 3 weeks ago on a Friday after closing." Chloe's mouth hung open. Ryan's eyes shot to his mother. Linda choked on her own breath. Chloe's voice cracked. "Linda, you said—" "Stop," Linda whispered, mortified. But Chloe was unraveling, humiliated, cornered. She pointed at Ryan. "He said he loved me." The room exploded again with shocked sounds. "You're the one who told me to pretend I was some cousin's friend so your wife wouldn't suspect anything." Chloe snapped at Ryan, her voice shaking. "You begged me to come tonight." Gas exploded again. Ryan stumbled back. "Chloe, stop. He told me he wanted to leave Emily, that I was what he needed, that she didn't." "Chloe!" Ryan barked, desperate. But it was too late. She had exposed everything. Guests whispered loudly now. "Oh my God! He cheated? With her? And the mother knew? Poor Emily." Chloe's face twisted with panic. She grabbed her purse. "I'm not doing this," she snapped, voice shaking. I'm not being ruined because you're weak." And she fled the hall, heels clacking across the floor, pushing past staring guests until she disappeared out the door. Silence followed. A thick, suffocating silence. Ryan stared at Emily like he was finally waking up from a nightmare, one he created. "Emily!" His voice broke. "Please, let's talk. We can fix this. I made mistakes." But Emily already reached into the folder Daniel's assistant had delivered. She pulled out a neatly folded document. 2 copies. She placed them into his trembling hands. "Emily, what is this?" he whispered. "Divorce," she said quietly. "My copy is already signed." The words detonated in his chest. He staggered backward. "No, Emily, no. Not like this. I can change. I swear. I'll fix everything. Please, don't go." Tears filled his eyes, sliding down in raw humiliation. He looked less like the angry man who slapped her, and more like a scared child who finally understood what loss felt like. Emily didn't soften. She didn't bend. She stood with calm dignity, letting him face the consequences of his choices. "I contacted a lawyer weeks ago," she said gently, "when I first suspected the affair. The documents were prepared then. Tonight, I just asked for them to be brought here." Gasps rippled again. But these were admiring. Some women even nodded at her strength. She continued, "The envelope you saw earlier? That was my lawyer delivering the final paperwork. The only thing missing was your signature and my decision." Ryan covered his face with his hands, sinking to his knees. "No, Emily, please. Don't do this. Don't leave me." His voice cracked in front of everyone. He was shattered, utterly broken. Emily stepped back, not out of fear, but out of firm emotional boundary. And then Linda, the same woman who lied, used her, allowed her to be slapped, fell to her knees. She grabbed the hem of Emily's dress, hands shaking violently. "Forgive me," Linda sobbed. "Please, Emily. I was scared. I didn't want to look weak. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please, don't leave us." Emily looked down at her, at this woman who had cried in her arms months ago, and then destroyed her in front of a room full of people. Her expression didn't change, but her silence screamed louder than any answer. And as the room held its breath, waiting for Emily's response, she stepped back, so quietly, so calmly, that everyone knew her next words would decide the fate of the entire family. Linda's hands clutched the hem of Emily's dress like a person drowning who had finally realized the water was too deep. Her tears soaked into the soft fabric, her fingers shaking with regret, fear, and a humiliation she could no longer hide from. "Please," Linda begged, voice cracking. "Please forgive me. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Emily's face remained calm, controlled, like someone who had finally reached the end of a storm and found the quiet center of herself. She looked down at the older woman for a long, heavy moment. Then, with a steady and gentle motion, she slipped her dress hem out of Linda's grasp. Linda collapsed forward, crying harder. Guests watched silently, unable to decide whether to pity her or recoil from the truth they had just witnessed. Emily took one slow step back, and another. Then she turned to the room, her chin lifted, her shoulders squared, her dignity intact despite everything thrown at her. Her voice was soft, but it filled every corner of the hall. "I love this family more than my own blood," she said. Every guest listened, every whisper died, every phone recording held steady. "And all I asked for," Emily continued, "was honesty." Her eyes moved from Linda's broken figure to Ryan's trembling hands clutching the divorce papers, to the relatives who had judged her without knowing the truth. "You gave me betrayal," she said quietly. The room held its breath. Emily stepped toward the door, pausing only once, to deliver the final line that would cut deeper than anything she had shown tonight. "So I'll give you the one thing you fear the most, the truth." And with that, she walked out. The sound of the door closing echoed like a verdict. Outside, the cool night air hit her face. Emily inhaled slowly, the first real breath she had taken all evening. It was steady, calm, free. Behind her, the doors burst open and Ryan stumbled out. "Emily!" he cried, his voice cracked in agony. "Emily, please, please don't leave like this. I can fix it. I swear I'll change." I'll do anything. Just don't go. He ran toward her, but halfway across the driveway, his knees buckled. He collapsed onto the cold concrete, sobbing into his hands. His shoulders shook with every breath, the weight of his actions crashing over him like a tidal wave. Emily stopped, but she didn't turn. All she said was, "You should have thought about that before you broke me." Her voice didn't tremble. Not anymore. Ryan cried harder, clutching his chest like something inside him had finally shattered. Back inside the hall, the consequences spread fast. Guests whispered. Phones recorded. Some tried comforting Linda, but most stepped away, uncomfortable with how easily she had lied, manipulated, and destroyed the woman who saved her. A few guests who had recorded the entire evening quietly shared the videos in family group chats and local WhatsApp circles that night. By the next morning, the clips would spread through the town. Customers would quietly stop visiting Linda's shop. Suppliers would distance themselves. Her business, already fragile, would crack under shame. Reputation, the thing she protected above love and truth, became the very thing that destroyed her. As for Ryan, things fell apart even faster. Chloe blocked his number within an hour. She refused to speak to him, afraid the scandal would stain her name. She denied everything publicly, saying she barely knew him, calling the messages misunderstood jokes to anyone who asked. When his workplace heard about the public scene, through those same local videos, they put him on temporary leave to review conduct, not wanting their company name attached to the drama. He spiraled quickly, alone, ashamed, friendless. His mother avoided his eyes. His mistress abandoned him. His marriage ended in front of witnesses. His reputation shattered. And every night he replayed that moment in his mind. The slap, the lies, the betrayal. And wished he had listened, wished he had trusted, wished he had seen Emily for who she really was. But regret always comes after the damage is done. Emily, however, did not crumble. She rebuilt herself quietly. She moved into a small but peaceful apartment, reopened her savings, focused on her career and on clients who respected her skills with numbers and organization, took time for therapy, journaling and long walks alone, letting the pain leave her body piece by piece. She gathered the pieces of her life, not with bitterness, but with dignity. She didn't gossip. She didn't brag. She didn't seek revenge. She simply lived in truth, and that truth became her victory. She entered that home with love. She left it with truth, and truth was the most powerful revenge of all. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.